It's another edition of Baseball and Beyond. Today, a veteran of radio, a broadcasting icon, a legend. His name is John Ullet. They call him U-Man. I am excited to talk to you again, John Ullet. Hello, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Brad.
You have more?
No, instead of icon, I was going to say Icken, but that's up to you.
I was not kidding. I do believe. I mean, anybody who's at a station 40 years, which you just celebrated 40 years at a station, you've been on the same station. I mean, what does it mean to you to have that kind of reputation? Maybe you don't know that you have it. I think you should. But the fact that you are, I don't know anybody in this city that's been anywhere in broadcasting for 40 straight years.
Well, yeah, I don't know either, but 40 years to me is I'm proud of it. Being able to make it that long and going through the various changes that we've gone through over these years at KSHE95, but not near as many changes as other stations have had. And I think that's what I credit my 40 years to, is we're on a station that has the same format, pretty much the same ownership for most of those 40 years, pretty much the same management. So when you got that kind of consistency in all other elements of the radio station, somebody like me has a chance to hang in there that long. So that's what happened.
Now, do you watch? I don't know if people listening know how media works, but radio probably worse than TV. You can talk about any of the DJs running through here. They've been on every station in every city. Like Mark Close has been on 8 of them, 9 of them, but he's still around. And just the fact that you kind of watch and see these guys kind of dodging landmines, and you're watching from where you are, going, "Wow, I've made it. I did not." Lucky. Because this is not how it works.
No, it's not. And most of the guys, a lot of the guys that you mentioned, are guys who were the main hosts of their particular shows. And that's another thing. Other than my midday show, I was a host, the main host. But in the volatile morning time slot, I was never the main guy. So whenever they made changes, it was one of those guys. It was Close, it was Smash, it was JC. But I was able to, because I was not really the bullseye, I was able to, avoid the shot,
What a smart guy you are, now that I think about it. You bob and weave, let the bird come through here. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, bird too, I know, yeah. And then Bob and Tom came in for I guess they were here, 15 years or something like that. By far, they had the longest running morning show on KSHE in the station's 50-year history, and certainly in my 40 years. So, that was a strange period too, because then I went from being their local news and sports guy in the breaks that we had, the local breaks, to moving down the hall to K-Hits with Corcoran. And I did that for 8 years with him. So, when you stop and think that I did an entire 8 years with some other morning show, and that didn't cover the entire span of the 15 years another morning show was going on in KSHE, it blows me away. And that's when it starts getting in my mind that, man, it has been a long time, because 8 years seems like nothing,
Yeah, no, but it's crazy. I've listened to you all these years as a little boy growing up and thought, how do I get into this business? But KSHE, we'll talk about in a little bit, but you guys are a rock station. You've stayed rock this whole time. You've kept the call letters. Not many stations do that. But you've had so many probably great experiences with rock artists and bands. And so I'm going to start just ask you about a few. If you have a story or not, that's great. But I know that Sammy Hagar is one of the first guys that anybody thinks about with KSHE. The relationship you guys developed with him, basically it worked for both of you guys. He needed some people to hear his music. You guys played it. This was a big deal in the 70s to have a rock station. Just talk about, a couple, 2, 3 favorite stories of Sammy, and just kind of, it seems like he's down to earth and just a good guy, and he really does genuinely love this town, and it's based on this radio station.
Oh, yeah. Hagar, from the very early days, as a solo artist, we were on his music, and he was trying. He had left Montrose, and he was in the lurch. He really had nothing going for himself, and he was trying to start this solo career, and he really wasn't getting that kind of very good response around the country. But Montrose was so big here, it was just a natural thing to just hey, Sammy Hagar from Montrose is putting out music. Let's start supporting it, and it was immediate, the connection, And I remember him coming into town many times before even St. Louisans really knew him that much, and coming to the radio station. I got pictures of me with him in the early '80s, and him signing things for me in the early '80s that I still have at my house, and And now he's moved on to Van Halen and all that stuff. And I think back to the simple days, and I miss him. It was cool when he was just a young guy, and we were all young guys just trying to make our way in the industry. So that's what I remember about Sammy, is that he was evolving while we were all evolving. We all kind of grew up together, and we're proud of our association with him. And I'm sure he'll be a part of our 50th anniversary coming up here real soon. But there are many stories. I mean, I've forgotten a lot of them over the years, but a recent one, for instance, is Roger Hodgson. I mean, he was just recently at River City Casino of Supertramp. And, I mean, that guy, in my mind, is just one of the unknown living legends in the industry, because, Supertramp was kind of a faceless band, really. And he was so nice to us, and he remembered KSHE, and he recognized us on the stage, and now we have an association with him that's going to go forward. But there are just so many over the years. I remember the early days of Journey, when Steve Perry, joined the band, and we were supporting Journey before that. And they were kind of an eclectic progressive rock band, and then he stepped in there, and Shelley Grafman and our program people started playing the music, and they just took off like that. And St. Louis was one of their initial big cities. And I remember going to Peaches on Hampton Avenue and doing a personal appearance with Steve Perry, and I think it was Steve Perry and Greg Raleigh, I believe, were the two. They were there that day, and the line was zigzagged throughout the store, out the door, down Hampton Avenue, and it was just a cool event. I got some pictures from that I treasure. I don't know, just meeting.
Well, you and Alice Cooper is crazy. Well, you're a good friend of his, right? I mean, you golf, and tell me about that relationship and what it's like to golf with Alice, because obviously the stage is all theatrics and music in the background, but just the relationship you forged with Alice Cooper, which is amazing.
Well, he came to the station one day, and we were talking in the interview, and he let on that he liked the game of golf. Back then, it was not cool for rockers to be playing golf. So, I said, well, we can go play. I'll take you out and play. We went to Quail Creek Golf Course the first time I played with him in South County. And he said, but whatever you do, don't say anything on the air that I'm playing golf. All right, no problem. Of course, when he left town, we immediately talked about how we played golf with Alice Cooper. But anyway, after that round at Quail Creek, I had to rush him back down to the city. He was doing something on the roof at Peaches, again on Hampton Avenue. And we were in a hurry, and traffic was building up on Tesson Ferry heading north. And I decided to take a shortcut. I made a right turn on, I think it was, I don't know what the name of the street is now. Is it Shetler, maybe? Something like that. Well, between Deerbergs and, I think, the Walgreens.
Mattis.
What is it?
Mattis?
Might have been Mattis.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Right before Mattis, just south of Mattis.
We're South County boys, so
yes,
I do. Tesson Ferry is always backed up, so there's no chance ever getting anywhere fast on it.
So I made that right turn, and an older gentleman coming out of a parking lot of Deerbergs just kept coming. And I went, what are you doing? And bam, he hit me and hit the side of the car and knocked in the front driver's side wheel. We weren't going anywhere, and we had to get him to that thing. So we got out of the car, had to make a phone call. This was before cell phones. We went into Walgreens to make a phone call.
With Alice?
Yes. And we were both hungry, too. So we bought some Cheetos, and we got a soda, and I called Mark Emo, who was playing with us that day. Called him from Walgreens, and he came up and picked up Alice. And while we waited for Emo to come and get us, we were sitting on the street corner on the curb eating Cheetos and drinking a soda, and that was one thing. But then I also played with him at St. Albans Country Club. And that was fun. By that time, he had pretty much refined his tastes in golf courses. He was only going to play the finest. And after that, we've tried to get him to play again. But I guess after playing the Pebble Beaches and the Torrey Pines and all the places that he always plays, we couldn't turn him on in St. Louis to anything more than that.
Pretty fun, though. I mean, he's just, like I said, a crazy guy, but not, I mean, that's just an act, right? What you see.
Absolutely. I mean, he really is a straight-laced guy. I mean, he's conservative. I mean, he would surprise you in his behavior based on what he does. But he's pretty much opened up to all that now as years have gone by. But for a long time, his personal life, was a disaster for a while because he was an alcoholic. But for a long time, his personal life was nothing like his his image, and he was very protective of it for a long time.
If I could just see you guys sitting on the side of the road coming home from high school, that would have been maybe the best thing. Ozzy Osbourne obviously has this great mugshot where he's in a Blues jersey, although I don't think that actually the mugshot took place in St. Louis. I think it was actually Houston, right? But any dealings with Ozzy? Yeah.
Might have been Nashville.
Houston,
was it Houston?
Someone
Okay, I don't
said
know.
Houston to me on the way here talking about it. But did Ozzy kind of make any rounds through this for this station at all?
Yeah, he did. He did. I remember one time he came in for the morning show, which was surprising, because rock stars don't get up in the morning.
He's still up there.
And yeah. Well, this was also when they said that he's cleaned up his act. He wasn't drinking anymore or anything. But he's coming into the station. You have to set up a bar in the studio. Why? How do he quit drinking? No, but you got to set a bar up. So we had to have a caterer come in and set up a bar. And I don't remember that he actually took any drinks or whatever, but I thought that that was very weird. And then also one time I interviewed him at the Fox Theater, and we're backstage. This was before the show, and we're sitting on a couch, and he's to my right, and somebody else is holding our microphone and tape machine. And Ozzy's got a cigarette in one hand, and Sharon brought him a scalding hot cup of tea for the other hand, and he's shaking like a leaf, like he does. And all of a sudden, I feel this fire in my shoe, right inside my instep in my shoe. I had these boat shoes on back then, so I guess I was had my foot up on my toe, so there was a little opening right there. And the ash from his cigarette, the hot red fireball fell right into my shoe and burned the crap out of my foot. And I don't have the tape anymore, but when we played it on the air, you could hear me go, "Ah, So,
do you have a scar from this is like an Ozzy Osbourne scar on your foot?
No, I don't. I should say I do. It sounds better, but I don't.
Okay, so we've mentioned two kind of the crazier guys, and those are great. Anything else that sparks your memory of people coming into the studio or somebody you got a chance to hang out with? Because those are two great ones right there. I like that. I mean, that's about as crazy as you go with some of these rock guys. But
well, Ted Nugent was always interesting. Yeah, I mean, he's crazy and he's funny. Whether you agree with his politics or whatever, I mean, you got to admit the guy's an entertaining dude. Mm-hmm. And I just remember him coming in the early days, and he would just go off, and he just started like talking about spiders and Ted was never a drug guy, so I don't know what he was talking about. He would go off on some tangents. But that and Billy Joel one time pulled up at the old radio station in Crestwood on Watson Road. He had hitchhiked to the station for the interview. This was before anybody really knew him. And he got out of a green Rambler. And I'm standing out in front of the station. And I go, "That's Billy Joel. What the hell?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm here for an interview." I took him inside, and Mark Close did the interview that day. So that was weird. Yeah, I don't know. Other Sam Kinison, the comedian, would come in the mornings with us. And Sam was crazy as hell, and that was...
Now, he was on stuff.
He probably
and was up all night.
Yes, and was up all night. And I'm looking for that tape right now to try to play it back on our 50th anniversary year, and I got tons of tapes in the basement that most of them are unlabeled, and I'm trying to find that, because I know it's in there somewhere, And we had a lot of sports celebrities on a regular basis, too, throughout the years. Joe McGrain was one of our favorites back in the 80s, and he has gone on to have a career in broadcasting, but he started with us. And Jerome Bettis started with us. We used to have him on once a week when he was with the Rams. Boy, who else? There was a bunch of guys. The Cavallini brothers, we had fun with them. They used to do movie reviews for us. I'm just trying to pull it all together over all these years. It's kind of hard, but...
yeah, you got to label your brain a little bit. You have no labels on the tapes, and your brain is... Yes. It's a lot of years of stuff.
Well, and you're just doing your job most of the time, and you're not thinking, well, someday this will be something. You don't think that way, and I didn't. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who worked here at the radio station, management people, they weren't thinking that way either. And I don't know, maybe it's because we're coming out of a rock and roll format, and maybe there's this kind of thought, who knows how much longer this is going to last. Who's going to care about this anyway in the future? It's not like you're a KMOX where you're going to be around for 100 years, and what you're documenting is history. Mm-hmm. And we were just having fun. Right. Documenting fun. Your mind isn't necessarily geared to saving that as much as it would be, if you were doing serious radio like them.
We'll get back to the interview with John Ullet, the U-Man from KSHE95, as we go baseball and beyond. This is definitely beyond, but I'm definitely a big music fan, and it's fun to hear some of these stories. We'll hear some stories about some of the guys that he met in concert and some of the experiences that they had back in the 70s with KSHE Kiss Kite flying contest. That's pretty interesting, actually. Pretty good one. But I want to tell you about our title sponsor, Masses Restaurants. There's 5 locations in St. Louis. You can find them on stlmasses.com. It's Massas. Masses. 5 locations in St. Louis, all over the area. Great food, big portions, delicious pasta. They've got fish. They've got seafood. They've got pasta that just Cajun chicken pasta that I love. They have great atmosphere, so it's a good place for a date. It's a good place for a big party or everything in between. Bring the family out early. Bring the family out late. You'll enjoy yourself. I always enjoy it. Sitting around the bar. You know, before you're ready to go to your table, just hang out with those bartenders. They're a hoot. Your waiters, waitresses will be fun, friendly, fast. They'll be there to serve you. It's Masses Restaurant, stlmasses.com. Go to the website, find out where they are, if you're not certain. Winghaven, Baldwin, Bridgeton, Newtown, and the new one in Town and Country. And also has the menus there. So I appreciate Masses being the title sponsor. Again, if you want to be a sponsor of this program, which it sounds like we have some interest, there's plenty of space available. I appreciate everyone listening and contacting me. You can contact me on Twitter at Brad Straubinger. You can also, if you're going to be nice and enjoy these podcasts, if you could help me just by one simple thing, going to iTunes and leaving a nice review, get that so people search this, they'll see it come up right away instead of the Baseball and Beer podcast. Anytime I search for it, that's the first thing that comes up. I want Baseball and Beyond to come up. So I appreciate you listening. We're going to go back to the interview with John Ullet from KSHE95 here on Baseball and Beyond.
So we talked about people coming in. You had, I don't know how many concerts did you see, especially 70s, 80s? I mean, did you go to a lot of these? And I mean, the Superjams, the one everyone like looks at, the one at Busch Stadium where you had Ted Nugent, you had Journey, and the guys kind of that you mentioned. The Superjams, the Kiss thing, we're going to talk about that in a second, but just any concert stories that you remember being kind of important to your life, and how many have you seen, and just to be being, you host them, I'm assuming, right? You get on stage and say, tell me a little bit about those days.
Yeah, we've done a lot of the hosting. For me, even though I've been here 40 years and I have gone to a lot of shows, but nowhere near as many as I would have gone to if I wasn't the Cardinals PA announcer. Mm-hmm. Because of that job, I've missed a lot of concerts. And that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying it's fact. But yeah, I mean, I remember one of my first up close great concert moments was sitting in the front row at a Billy Joel concert at the Ambassador Theater, and I don't know if you know the beginning of Angry Young Man, praying, ding, 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 and he's just going, he was sitting right in front of me. I was looking right up into the stage. I was looking right at his hand right there. It was right in front of my face. And, we don't get these kind of tickets anymore, but back in the day when we sold tickets at the radio station and out the window of the studio too, try to do a radio show when people are knocking on the window trying to buy concert tickets and T-shirts and hats and stuff like that. That wasn't very easy sometimes. But anyway, we would sell the tickets and we'd get really good tickets. And there were times we were sitting in the front row. Front row at a Jethro Tull concert one time, and I remember Ian Anderson was in his green tights. He was prancing around on the stage, and he came right in front of me, and there was this package right there in front of my face. It's one of the negatives of being in the front row.
Quite a memory, though, John. I asked you for a few memories, and this is the first one that comes out from a concert. Okay.
And I got to sit real up close, second row for an Eric Clapton concert one time. And, being on stage and introducing artists that have played at our birthday parties, that's always been fun. I tell the story about Eddie Money doing our birthday party one night. We were doing a series of shows, Eddie Money shows. I think it was 4 nights in a row, or maybe 3 nights in a row, at Westport Plaza on the round stage. And we were having our birthday celebration before the show. And I had kind of like this history of doing things to people up there on the stage, like Sweetmeat. Every year was a tradition. If you're in the Sweetmeat suit, you're going to get hit in the nuts on the stage in front of our birthday crowd.
Which is the pig that is the logo of the station, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yes. And so, but this day, I
Once
decided,
again, in 2 minutes, you've mentioned something about that area of a man's area. Interesting, but go on.
well, that's always been a focal point for the radio station for some reason, because we have such a male audience. How about that?
Yes.
And so That night, though, I decided to take the birthday cake and shove it in our intern's face. So it was a big cake, too. And I just lifted up and pushed it right in his face. And so we left the stage. So I'd say a dozen years later, I'm standing on the field at Busch Stadium, and I turn around and I see Eddie Money behind the screen. And I said, damn, that's Eddie Money. So I go over, I start talking to him. He goes, I'd like to sing the national anthem here tonight if you can set that up for me. And back then, we didn't have kids singing the national anthems every night like we do now. So there were nights when it was just Ernie on the organ. And,
Again, with the male regent, sorry.
sorry.
Ernie, rest in peace, would love that joke.
Yeah, Ernie Hayes on the organ. And so I told Marty Hendon, Eddie Money wants to sing the national anthem. He said, well, it better be Eddie Money, because he thought maybe I was playing a joke on him, which I wasn't. So we bring Eddie Money out on the field, and so there's some time, and I'm talking to Eddie before he sings, and I said, yeah, man, I work at KSHE Radio, and you did our birthday party, you've done our different shows and stuff, and he said, yeah, I remember doing your birthday party. I said, yeah, it was like 3 shows in a round there, and one night I threw the birthday cake in the face of a buddy of mine on stage. He stopped me, he looked at me, he goes, you're the son of a bitch that did that? He said, I almost broke my that night, sliding around on that icing on the stage, man.
I saw Eddie Money 2 years ago at Lumiere Place, maybe 500 people, 600, and it's one of my favorite shows I've ever seen, just because it's Eddie. We always wanted to see Eddie Money, and it was fun, and he was out of it, but not out of it. Like he literally, I don't know if anyone's ever seen him, but he plays sax, he sings, so he gets out there, he looks like his eyes are closed, and then he blows into the sax, his eyes beat up. He's got 7 to 8 hits, and just to see him in that little area, and then after the show, he sits down right outside the door that you walked in. He's like, "Who wants pictures, autograph?" And this guy's a star. So I thought that, to me, it's the fun about this is just remembering. We're saying, "Oh, we're gonna go see Eddie Money. It's gonna be fun," and then just seeing how much fun it is. You talked about having people sing at Busch. Now, Steven Tyler, during the World Series, did a thing where he did God Bless America in the 7th inning. I was wondering if you had anything to do with Steven Tyler. It was the World Series in '04 because of the Boston Red Sox, and I think and Aerosmith was playing that night. And any Aerosmith stories? I'm guessing you didn't. I'm guessing that might have been, hey, Steven's here. You want to sing? Go sing. I felt like it wasn't set up. I just felt like it was a friend of mine actually peed next to him. Again, but he did. He peed next to him in the 6th inning in just a regular pisser at the ballpark, which I thought, he goes, yeah, I just peed next to Steven Tyler, and then the next inning. So I'm assuming you probably had nothing to do with that, but just the Steven Tyler. I'm a Aerosmith fan, so if you have any Aerosmith.
Not really. I mean, Aerosmith, they kind of would come in and just come through town, and I don't remember anything particular, but other than one time he was on the field at Busch Stadium for the hit song that we were not playing at the time because we considered it kind of
Must be Angel.
wimpy rock. No, it wasn't Angel. Okay. It was
Dream On.
No. This is one that.
What year?
It was 2000s. It was the early
if I Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Yes, Don't Want to Miss a Thing. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't playing it, and he was aware of KSHE and KSHE's history in this in this city whenever he would come through. And so, I'm just a PA announcer, and I just wanted to make small talk with him, and I said, Stephen, hi, I'm John Ullet, and I work at KSHE Radio. And right away he was like, whoa, because he was down with another radio station. Another radio station was hosting.
Y98 probably.
Yeah, I don't know which one it was. I thought maybe it was 107.7 or something like that. So right away I sensed that he knew that he had possibly offended someone who had helped him build his career here in St. Louis, KSHE, And then we kind of talked a little bit about it and smoothed it over, but it was not that big a deal. But he's a sharp guy.
Yeah.
He's a sharp guy. He knows his stuff. He understands the business.
Yeah, markets himself well, goes into country, does everything. A couple other concerts or events. The Kiss Kite Day. I don't really know anything about this. I wasn't born. But many fans of Kiss that I know who told me this is a crazy. Tell me a little bit about anything that happened that day that you remember.
Well, actually, that was before my time here, too. I mean, that goes back. I came in 76, so that was 74, I believe. One of the Kite Flies was 74, and another one was 75. And I think Kiss was the 74 show. And, well, Mark Close has a great story about how he was sent to the airport to pick up the guys from Kiss in a van that had no seats in the back. And he doesn't even know what these guys look like. So how am I going to know who these guys are? So he goes to the airport, and he sees 4 guys get off the airplane all wearing leather, and he goes, I think that's probably them. So he gets them in the van, and they'll tell the story too. They're sitting in the back of the van. He's driving. They have no seats. There's no seat belts, and they're flying one front end of the van to the other. And he gets them to the hotel. He drops them off at the hotel, and they're staying at the hotel across the street from Forest Park, where the kite fly was held. And it's time for the show. And Close goes and gets, this is a KSHE production. It's not contemporary production or anything else. The radio station is putting this on, having no idea what the hell they're doing. So Mark Close, Shelley Grafman, who was the general manager at the time, sends Close to get 4 generators to power the show, and there's like 9.5-volt generators. and they'll say they set the thing up, and Kiss's manager comes up. He goes, what the hell's going on here? So this is all you got here set up for this show? And while he's talking to Close, one of the generators craps out already, so they're down to 3 now. And he goes, we need 50,000 watts for this, and 40,000 watts, and he's throwing all kinds of numbers at Close, and Close. Well, we got about 18. So he says, we're not doing this show. No damn way. We're going to bring the band out here. And, there's like 50,000 people standing out there. And Close says, all right, well, I'll get on the phone with my boss. So Shelley Grafman, still at the radio station, Close calls him up. And this guy's a big dude, and he's pissed off. So Close calls up Shelley, and Shelley says, what's going on? Close says, they said they're not going to play because we don't have enough power for everything. Shelley says, they're not going to play? He says, no. And he said, well, then tell them, go home. We don't need them. Close goes, oh, okay. He hangs up the phone to Shelley. He turns back to the guy who's pissed off. Says, my boss says you guys can just go home. And the guy goes, what? Then he thought about it for a little bit, and he turned around, and he sees 50,000 people, and he goes, all right, we'll play. So I don't know how they pulled the show off with about 18 watts of power, but they played loud enough for at least the people around the stage to hear it. Nobody else way out there could hear a thing, but
Good for them.
then they did better the next year when Rush came for the next one, but
What was the kite aspect, though?
well, it was just
Here we everybody
come and
bring
fly
a
your
kite.
kites, but it was more of a concert than a kite fly.
Yeah, because we're right at the end of Woodstock at that point, so I guess there's still, I don't know about St. Louis being a hippie place, but I guess there was a little bit of that, kind of changing over, because the rock thing, I guess Zeppelin really kind of changed the whole rock thing, but you guys, I don't know if you had anything to do with Guns N' Roses being here in 91, but it's probably, I guess, is this the one most people ask you about, or people think about as a most famous concert? I know we had the Beatles and we had Elvis and we had the big shows with Paul, but this one is landmarkish. You don't see many riots. And for our town to do what they did, of course, everyone was a little hopped up. Your guys' station has a YouTube channel that has a great documentary from people who were there, from Contemporary Productions who put it on. I don't know if you were there. I don't think you were. It's probably a Cardinal game. But what have you heard about that one and just some of the things that still come up, and the fact that they're coming back, and I guess you guys are part of that. Part of me thinks, I don't know if I want to go because, you did that to our town one time. I don't really care about that, but then you fooled us last year. I don't know if that was true or not. And then the whole Trump pig thing in Mexico. Now so I'm trying to decide. If it was at Busch Stadium, I definitely would go, just because it's a Busch. Yeah. Now at the Dome, all right, that was my soliloquy. Thoughts on that concert and just kind of what I brought up here at the end?
Well, I mean, that night will live in infamy because, like you said, I mean, it was St. Louis. We're not a town that people don't usually act that way here. So just for it to happen here was kind of out of character for who we are. And he was so, he was prosecuted and all that, and had to pay a fine. And then on the next album, put, F.U. St. Louis on the album. So it was like it's a done deal forever. It was never going to happen again. And it was just written off no matter what. And then, of course, the band broke up and all that kind of stuff, that history. And, he went through this period of time where he'd show up for shows, 2 and 3 hours late. And, who would want that? To hell with him. Oh, they're going to get back together now? Still, I don't trust him, And then we heard a year ago when it was rumored that they were coming, that it definitely was going to happen. And the Dome was ready for it. And a guy who's in the band now, who's one of our sources for the whole story, I don't know if you know.
From St. Louis, yeah. My brother knows him. He's a musician, just like a session guy who's now in Guns N' Roses. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, Richard Fortas.
Yeah.
And he told us he had just got off the phone yesterday, the day before, with Axel, and he wants to come back to St. Louis, and they want to make amends. And it just so happened to be they made this announcement on April Fool's, and we looked like, well, we got fooled. But supposedly that was just coincidence, and he definitely wanted to come back, and well, now they are.
So what happened last? Nothing. Like, no reason for last year. There was nothing to them.
It just was a routing thing. It was just a routing thing, and they just couldn't get through. I can't remember exactly what all happened. But you're not going to have a Guns N' Roses concert at Busch Stadium in the middle of summer in case something does happen. So that was out. And Scott Trade Center wasn't big enough, so the Dome was really the only place to go. And they said they were ready to go, but because they routed one way or another, they couldn't get back here. So I figured there was another element of it that made it impossible for them. But Richard kept telling us it's going to happen, and he was right, just a year late.
Thoughts on going to it?
Yeah.
Help me out with that.
Well,
I'm thinking about, and if you have tickets here today, I'll take them from you and definitely go. And that's why I'm here, John. Actually,
right.
let's just turn this off and talk about getting me some go. But should I be conflicted? Should I just go? Here's what happened last year when I heard this was happening. This all over the Midwest. I thought Axl doesn't sound good anymore. I mean, what? I had a friend go to the Chicago show in Soldier Field, then a friend went in Kansas City at Arrowhead, and then someone went in Nashville, and they all said, it was great. And so then I was jealous and mad that I didn't pick one of those 3 cities to go to. Mm-hmm. So now I'm thinking I'm having a real problem here, John. I need your help.
Well,
I should go, right?
Absolutely, you should go. And I tell you what, maybe it's an age thing with me, but anymore, because the art form of rock and roll with the original people, I mean, they're not going to be around much longer, and some of us aren't going to be either. You're still on the young side of things. Whenever you get a chance now to see the original people doing this great music that has become so iconic over the years, you better go, because you don't know when you're going to get another chance. I'm trying to go to everything. I don't care, large, big name artists, middle name artists, smaller artists. I'm going because I want to see them one more time. In my life.
All right, let's go. Give me some tips. I'm going to wrap up, John. I appreciate all your time here, but you just kind of mentioned it. Rock and roll is different. It seems like we go through this a lot, but this is a weird time where you can really, Foo Fighters, U2, and these are bands that have been around 20, 30 years. The new bands are kind of bands you'd hear on the point, but it's still not even like, I don't know, back then there was Pearl Jam and Nirvana, and there's not any of that happening. You guys still kind of stick to the classic rock format. People in St. Louis love it, so you guys should be okay. But the thoughts on just the way rock and roll, I know pop music's always around, and there's for one Taylor Swift, there's a Paul Abdul, but it feels like, man, we are losing some kids on this music.
Yeah. Well, I think there's 2 things going on. One is that the business and technology has forced things to go to where, you got to have hits. You got to have, if you're not, artists, a lot of them are in it, they say, for the art, and it's true. But in the end, almost every one of them, you ask, you want to make money? The answer is yes. They want to make a living at what they love doing. So I think the business has tightened it up to the point where, you can't just be a free-form artist anymore and slowly build your career. It's almost like if you don't do it overnight, you're not going to make it. And I hate that aspect of it, but that's the way it seems to me the business is right now. And that doesn't foster what we experienced in the 60s and 70s, because those bands had a clean slate to do whatever they wanted, And when you let artists and creativity just flow like that, that's when you're going to get the really, really good stuff. You can't force it. You can't force creativity. And I think a lot of artists today are being forced to force the hits and the music and all. But also, the other thing is that clean slate aspect of it. Man, the canvas was blank, and these people were able to come along and do what they were able to do. And now I think artists today are trying to find their space in that canvas that is full of beautiful artwork. And it's tough. It's like trying to reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
Yeah, I just worry about the music, but I think we'll be fine. Everyone says rock and roll is dead, and then some Pearl Jam comes along. We had Poison and Motley Crue.
That's been 1990. That's 26 years ago Pearl Jam came along. We keep using them as a reference point.
We need another one, isn't it?
Yes, we do. We do.
It's not Coldplay. Yeah. So you've done Cardinal Baseball. You're the PA announcer there. You've been there so long. You work in the morning. You have to go there at night. It's 80 games, but I assume that's a dream job to sit up there and be the voice that people hear all the time. And just tell me a little bit about your thoughts on what makes that job great. I mean, I think when I think of the job, Bob Shepard, the Yankees PA announcer who died, they had this huge ceremony, and I start thinking, someday that's going to be John. I mean, John has been in 2 of these stadiums, and you've been there 20, 30 years at the old one, now 10 or whatever it is. This one, it's got to be one of the greatest jobs in the world. Just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I never would have thought when I first got the job, and I was lucky to get it when I was 25 years old, that it would be as important to my career locally here as it has become. Like you said, stadium announcers. You can't put me in the same category as Bob Shepard. I mean, what was it, 50 some odd years for him? I'll be going into my 33rd season. And he had a very unique voice. I mean, my voice.
And he was Yankee, so there's
yeah. I mean, my voice is pretty middle of the road. It doesn't stand out. But, there are only 30 of those jobs. So, that makes it pretty special. And, for the longest time for me, especially before I got married and had children, it was just about going to the baseball game, man, and just being a kid in a candy store, and meeting all the players and getting to be friends with a lot of guys over the years. But as I've matured through the process and had a family, and now the players are so much younger than me. I mean, I don't even bother to go down there. Now I do it just for the game. It's not about the players and the money or anything like that anymore. And I just realize now, as I get older, that everyone is special. And then the Cardinals have been so successful, and that's also made the job more visible. If I was the Pittsburgh Pirates PA announcer, I mean, they've probably gone through like 10 of them. Nobody really noticed or cared because nobody was going to the games. So the stadium's always full, and that's always been. And so my voice has been out there a lot, and the Cardinals use me on their commercials and everything. And I do the Cardinals Kids television show as well, Professor U-Man. So it's been a very important part of my career. And my kids love the fact that I'm doing it now. That's another reason why I keep doing it. And I just want to see how long I can do it. I just want to see how long I can hang in there. And it's been tougher for me than probably every other PA announcer out there for Major League Baseball, because I doubt the other ones have to get up at 4:30 in the morning and do a morning show the next day. So I try to keep myself in good physical shape so that I can handle that pretty easily, And so far, knocking on wood, I've been able to do it.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how you do it, because I used to do a job where I was over there every day, and it would just be. I try to get out of it as quickly as possible. So to be there through rain delays and all that, no one's gonna cry that John's doing rain delays. But lastly, and just wrapping up KSHE's 50th year anniversary, your morning host Learn is trying to get them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So they're there permanently. They should be there. It's a station that obviously people know about, but you guys are coming up. Your 40th was so cool to see. 50 years of this station. You guys have obviously a lot coming up. I think, to me, what I remember most is you guys were so creative with those commercials and Brown Sugar. I mean, the only way I know the song Brown Sugar is from the KSHE commercials, and he's doing it again. And then the Sweet Meat. You guys have done such a great job throughout the years of keeping this alive. Tell me a little bit about what it means that this station's 50 years old and what you guys have planned. And it really is. I don't know if people really realize how special it is. If you don't find stations that stick with the same call letters and the same format and have the same people that you can hear day to day, and it becomes a community, and that's what it's supposed to be, not some Ryan Seacrest doing it from L.A.
Yeah, and it's our audience. I mean, the audience has been so reliable and loyal over the years. I mean, it amazes me all the time. And unfortunately, now we're getting older, and some of them are, we're dying off. But we're also, rock and roll and the station has been passed down generationally to younger people who they win contests. We see them at the concerts. I walked into the Brew and Beer. What's that new place, that Kiss's place down there in Chesterfield Valley, the other day? And a 17-year-old kid came up to me and asked me how my hernia is doing, because we do a hernia update thing on the air in the morning. It's like, wow, it just blows me away. So yeah, it's been something that's generational. It's KSHE is as much as St. Louis as, and it sounds corny, but the Arch and everything else you can think of.
But it's true.
It is true. It's true, and we are very protective of that. Our management is, and so yeah, for me, it's just been an incredible, fun time, and I can't believe that I've lasted as long as I have. But I knew early on in my career that I was on the right vessel, that I was in the right place, because right away I sensed the loyalty and the love of the radio station and the music that our listeners had. And I had been to some other stations prior to that. By no means enough stations you would think to notice something like that, but I did right away. And I said, I'm going to ride this thing out as long as I can, and I have.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. I know I took a little more than usual. I always do that, but I enjoy hearing the stories. And 23 years ago, over in the other building, you let me come in and talk to you and do an interview with you. It was my 9th public access show. You sat down and did it just like you did here, and I thought it was great because I was just a kid with a little home movie camera and a wire and a bad hairdo and a terrible shirt, and you were so nice to me then and you were nice to me now, and I think that helps when as a kid growing up through the business, you get someone like you who shows you that there are nice people in this business.
Well, I remember that, and I remember how.
No, yeah,
I do. I remember how eager you were, and when you see a young person like that who's just really into the broadcasting industry, I picked that up from you right away. I know you just want to help, and I said, well, I'm going to keep an eye on that guy. And I've watched your career develop as time has gone on too, and here you're still doing broadcasting.
From public access to podcasts.
Yeah, but that means you love it.
I do love it.
There's something about it that you love.
I do love the art of the interview. I love hearing stories, and that's why I'm doing this one.
Yeah, I could tell that from back then. So anytime you need anything,
all right, maybe
whatever.
20 years from now, we'll be
hope.
talking about your 60th year anniversary here. Yeah. Thank you, John Ullet, the U-Man, a legend in St. Louis, KSHE Radio, 50-year anniversary. I appreciate his time, this time as I did 23 years ago. It's Baseball and Beyond, presented by Masses Restaurant. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Twitter, @Brad Straubinger, and subscribe on iTunes, and give it a good review. John, go to iTunes and say, nice job, Brad. We want to hear more St. Louis media legends.
Will do.
All right. Thanks for listening.